Oh man, I am failing at this content creation stuff. I really have to say I admire people that are able to post every day, because just things like editing out when I take a breath and it sounds like I'm gasping for air because I have sinus issues. So even though I'm breathing through my nose, apparently somehow I'm still taking like these deep breaths through my mouth. I think because I'm speaking aloud. Anyway, I'm new to all this stuff. I'm really slow. I'm slow to begin with because I'm older, I'm disabled, I am on different medications that make me drowsy. So half the things I plan in a day, even though my expectations have dropped significantly as I've developed these health conditions, means anything besides just feeding myself twice and feeding my cats and just regular everyday survival things, it's hard to even make time for that. And I know that's hard to understand if you're regular and healthy, because I used to be regular and healthy and work full time, work a second job. I used to do things in my free time like usher plays on Broadway so that I could see the play for free. Obviously things like dinner with friends and going to the movies and all sorts of stuff. Literally my life is feeding myself twice a day, reading email, just like the very minimal. So this is why it's hard for me to get videos out in time or even sit down to record them. I also don't have a ton of privacy because I'm living with other people, because I'm disabled and don't have an income. My SSI is even lowered because I live with other people. So I am on the struggle bus. And that's frustrating because I have so much to say, and I hope the Duffers don't fuck this up, because then anything that I release after New Year's Day, people just, come with dumb comments like, you were wrong, you Byler, you're stupid. Which, by the way, I'm getting all those comments as it is, and I'm going to put those, I'm going to screenshot some of these in this video, but I'd love to do a video breaking those down, because I think I said this before, but what do you think this reminds me of? Reminds me of 2024 and 2020 and 2016. What happened in those years? Well, I'm an American, so guess what happened in those years? Fucking Donald Trump ran, I swore, so there's that. Donald Trump ran for president, and I don't know if it's just him, but certainly since he first ran for president, all the stupid people suddenly decided they were smarter than the smart people. And it's aggravating as hell being one of the smart people, because I wish I could be dumb. I wish I could think a moron could run the country and not destroy the economy, or a grifter could become president and not grift off the presidency. But look what happened. It's almost like if you listen to the smart people, we would have a better ending. Same with Stranger Things. It's all the same thing, because look what the dumb people are saying, and look at the dumb people's arguments. The dumb people's arguments are, he's always been with Elle. It's weird being meaning gay. They don't want to say, the real homophobes will come out and say it, but then there's the people that aren't brave enough to be homophobes, so they just say that Byler's weird. Or I had someone the other day saying, oh, you spend a lot of time thinking, sexualizing 10-year-olds. First of all, they were 12 in the first season. Secondly, I didn't sexualize them. Being gay isn't inherently sexual when you're a child, any more than being straight is inherently sexual when you're a child. When I was a child, guess what? I'm a former 10-year-old. I'm a former 12-year-old. I remember what those things were like. In fact, I had a teacher a long time ago that said, if you want to think about someone's personality or why they're the way they are, look at where they were in 8th grade. And that teacher asked me, where were you in 8th grade? And I was like, oh, I moved in 8th grade. And they're like, what? Not only did I move in 8th grade, because my parents had bought a house in the suburbs, I grew up around LA, I had said goodbye to all my friends because the house that my parents had bought was built for us. It was in a new development. We picked it. They picked all the tiles and colors and all that, so it was built for us. We're the first people that ever lived in that house. My mom sold it a couple years ago. So if it had been a regular house, probably it wouldn't have been so much of a problem. I don't know. We probably could have just, the sale would have gone through and then we would have moved in, and any changes and updates probably would have been after we moved in, right? Or maybe over a month, overlap with us paying rent and mortgage, right? But instead what happened is it was a development, all the houses, look the same and everything. And so, what happened was they just fell behind. And so we were supposed to move in, by May it was supposed to be ready. So we're going to move right after I finished 7th grade. Then in, May it wasn't ready, in June it wasn't ready, August it wasn't ready. So I started 7th grade back at the junior high where I had just said goodbye tearfully to all my friends the year before. And 7th grade was actually the first time I really felt I fit in, and I had found some friends in my gifted classes that I got along with, right? And then I started 7th grade, and then we moved in October. Yeah, that totally is formative. That's such a formative time. And I think ever since then, we had moved a lot when I was little, and I had finally kind of felt settled. And then we moved in 8th grade, and I had to start all over again. And also, I went from a school that was 9th grade were the oldest kids. So the next year I was going to be in 9th grade and we were going to rule the school, right? No, instead I moved to a place where high school was 4 years, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So not only did I miss out, on my friends and transitioning with them, but also the next year I had to start over as a freshman and be all awkward and youngest and everything. Anyway, again, I ramble. That's why it takes me so long to do anything. But here's the thing. We used to be those ages. People that are adults. Yeah, there are people that are adults that are totally inappropriate with kids. I have never said I want to see a sex scene between Mike and Will. I don't think it's appropriate. They're still minors. Although, guess what? Nancy and Steve had a sex scene, and they were, I think, younger than Mike and Will were, because I think Nancy was a freshman. Just based on when it was. Anyway, I'm not going to do the math live here, but at any rate, the reason that I think a kiss makes sense is because that's how movies work. That's how TV works. We have so many things in this show that point to romantic tropes and romantic plots and lighting and everything. And so my expectation as someone that has some media literacy, who has written TV and movie scripts. No, they haven't been produced, but I have written them. I've studied them. We have to study shows, and the things I'm not as good at are, lighting and visual storytelling and cues. I'm more of a writer in terms of words and setting up jokes and writing the arcs and stuff like that. I'm not as skilled in the language of film. It's the last type of writing I've gotten to. I started with journalism, went into fiction and nonfiction later. So film writing I have the least experience in. So when other people that pay much more attention point out those things, I can then see it, but I wouldn't have noticed the musical cues. Sometimes I will notice the lighting, because sometimes it's so obvious that they light Mike and Will, when they're seeing each other through each other's perspective. It's romantic. The light is suddenly brighter than the objective view, like the scene in the field where they're flirting with each other. The objective view is one thing, but then the colors are more intense when Mike is looking at Will, or vice versa, because they have a romanticized view of each other because they're in love. And again, I started talking about junior high because I'm getting, and I see this happen to other people of you're sexualizing minors, trying to make it out we're groomers and we're freaks and we're weirdos. No, I used to be 10, I used to be 12, and I know what that's like. I know what it's like to have a crush. I know what it's like to assume your crush is unrequited. And guess what? When I moved in 8th grade, not to get back to that, I wasn't even thinking of that I was going to go here. I had a crush on this guy named Mark. Guess what Mark told me after I moved away? He had a crush on me too. But how many times when you're that age, your body's changing? Even the, kids that are the most popular or whatever, they may be able to fake it better, but they have insecurities because suddenly your body just is different, and you have hormones raging. That affects how you think. Just having periods, that's just such a weird new thing when you're a kid, right? Your body is just changing, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know what to do with all these feelings. And so, naturally, and to expect kids to know how to express that, and especially gay kids in Indiana in the 1980s during the height of the AIDS crisis, they don't know how to express that. They don't even know that being gay is an option. They don't know having a same-sex relationship is an option. So then they have to press those feelings down more because those feelings aren't quote-unquote normal. Big scare quotes there. So basically, I wanted to keep this short, but that's not my style. I don't keep it short. But I want to do another video where I talk about this at length. I might clip this and start at the beginning. But I just want to say, I'm older, and I am going to confront those people that are bullying you in the comments, that are making the homophobic remarks, because I know what it's like to be a kid. I remember being bullied, and it makes me so sick and so disgusted that, all these dumb people think that their dumb opinions are not only as valuable, but they think they're better and more logical than people who have actually gone through and looked at the evidence of visual storytelling, of just the logic of what happened to Mike's behavior in season 3 and 4, and what explains his behavioral change, and why is he back to normal in season 5. And the only real explanation is that he's in love with Will. There's not another explanation for why he's suddenly a jerk to his best friend and his girlfriend, why he can't balance his best friend and girlfriend. It's almost like they take up the same space in his head, right? Yeah, because they do. Because he thinks he has to be with a girl, but he's really attracted to Will. That's his conflict. Otherwise, he's a terrible character with no character arc, because he's just gone from being the leader to being a jerk for 2 seasons back to being the leader. And he's had no growth. I just saw a video, I think it was Loser Sits by Herself. And she made that point. But yeah, that's how characters work. That's how writing works. So, I feel like I'm going to sound like a grandma. Just think of me as your creative writing auntie. Take faith, Bylers. Yes, it's possible that this won't go well. This won't be done correctly. However, if that's the case, the failure will be on the part of the show, not on you, not on Bylers. The Bylers are writing long, detailed, well thought out, researched, both, film history, researching the show, researching, literary and film tropes, and giving detailed, it backed up intellectual reasons for Byler and why they even came up with this theory in the first place. And then almost all the questioning, and I've gotten it in comment sections too, is you're dumb, you're delusional. I don't know who taught the anti-Byler people the word delusional, but it's literally in every comment section where an anti-Byler comes, you're delusional. It's like they taught them one $5 word, and they are going to use that word over and over again. They don't even know what it means. They just know it's hurtful, right? And it's just meant to shut people down. Guess who got called delusional all through 3 election cycles, arguing with people online? And I know it's dumb that I argue with people online. Well, I should have checked it when my little audio meter stopped running, but the video said that the time kept going up in the video. I just lost about 3 minutes of me talking. What I was going to say was that I am not arguing in comment sections for myself, and I'm not arguing in comment sections to save the idiots from themselves. I'm arguing in comment sections for the people that are vulnerable, the people that are young, the people that are gay, and when they see those comments, they're hurt. And they're hurt to their core, and they're not old enough and experienced enough or confident enough to not take that to heart, just like how people have crashed out over volume 2 because it hurts them so directly. I can look at it slightly more objectively because I'm not gay. That's not affecting me directly. I am also not young. I'm in my 50s. I've been abused, literally physically beaten, emotionally beaten, financially destroyed by other people and their hatred from me. I've lost absolutely everything in my life because of other people's bigotry. And bigotry isn't always direct or loud or using racial slurs. In fact, the worst bigots against me have been white women who have taken away and forced me out of schools and jobs and other things that are even more personal that I had a right to. And they've taken them away just because they could. And honestly, it's amazing how much it's analogous to this situation, because usually they have focused on me, not just because I was a minority, because they were fine with minorities who acted dumb. And that's an act that people have been doing since slavery, to act dumb to get what they want. Women do it, black people do it. There's a real analogy there as well. So they never attack people like that. They attack the person like me that doesn't hide their intelligence, that doesn't hide that they're capable. And so I think that there's a real, again, analogy and correlation between Bylers and any other kind of minority, because the attacks are always simplistic and dumb, and it's like they're just repeating the same things. Like, I don't know who taught all the anti-Bylers the word delusional, but the number of times I've had that directed at me or seen it in the comments is astonishing. The fact is, if Bylers are quote-unquote wrong, then it's the same as progressives and liberals being quote-unquote wrong about the 2024 election. Look where we're at now. The dumb people didn't listen to the smart people, and they voted for a dumb person who's completely just destroyed our economy, going after, not only or going after immigrants that did do the right things, going at them at their hearings, so they obviously are following the law, and however you feel about immigration, it's a civil matter. It's not something to arrest people for. It is not something to beat people for or imprison them for. You just take them out of the country and return them to their own country. You don't rendition them to a different country. That's not how things should work legally, regardless of what your politics are, because as an American, I want my country to follow the law, because if they violate someone's rights, they could violate mine. And they have been arresting and renditioning American citizens. So I don't want to be renditioned to a country I have no connection with. And where would you send me? My family goes back on this soil to the 1820s, yet I'm half black. And there's no such thing as half black, right? Like Kamala Harris lied, she's not biracial, says a white man. How would he know? It's just a pure fact that she's biracial. It is insane to argue with the fact of someone's identity, but guess who's experienced that their whole life? Me. So where would you send me? Because if you sent me based on how most people see me, you would send me to Africa, and where? I guess Nigeria, because that's the largest percentage of my DNA according to my DNA test. But the actual largest percentage of my DNA overall is, I think, Ireland. It shifts around. At one point it was Scotland. My grandmother's family, I looked on the tree, and based on other people's trees, if they're accurate, we're Scottish with some Irish mothers, but the male lines are Scottish going back 1,000 years. But if you look at me through the lens of bigotry that has always said that the one drop rule determines who you are, not the fact that I'm a suburban white nerd from white neighborhoods, and that even my black family are not the sort of ghetto stereotype that people have constantly tried to overlay on me. That doesn't matter. It only matters what people see, that they've been taught to see, because even just looking at me, I have my mother's nose. And I had someone in college argue with me, well, I don't have any way to know your mother's white. And I'm like, yeah, but you do know this isn't a black nose. This is not an African nose. And all the features that people point to that are my quote-unquote black features are my white mother's features, including my last name, which is, a stereotypical black name, Jackson, but in fact, it is from my white side. So what I'm saying is, again, all analogous, because they're trying to say that, oh, you have an agenda and you just want Byler to be true because you're gay. Not everyone who supports Byler is gay. They just have eyes. They just, recognize how film works and visual storytelling. And why would they put this much effort into quote-unquote queer baiting? Not quote-unquote queer baiting, I'm sorry. Actually queer baiting. Byler fans, just to gain 10% of it were only gay people, but let's say 20 or 30% audience, I guess, maybe. But the fact is that I just think it's too much effort to put into queer baiting. I don't know, because I haven't had another show where I knew that I was being queer baited. There might be shows I've watched where there was queer baiting and I didn't pick up on it. And again, this show was one I didn't pick up on it. I was a casual viewer until I saw Mike's little hard eyes, and now I'm like, holy shit, the whole show was recontextualized for me in that moment. And I think the whole show is going to be recontextualized for the general audience in the finale. One more thing that, I don't know, I kind of want to do this as a separate video, but I think Byler's kind of screwed themselves up thinking in a very meme way of it was a 7, so episode 7 was going to be the reveal. Narratively, that doesn't make sense because you don't wrap up your main conflicts, your main plot lines, and your main romantic tension, any of that, in the second to last episode, because then what they're doing the finale, that would be like if they defeated Vecna in episode 7, and then episode 8 is just them cleaning up the town and hanging out, maybe planning a party at Enzo's. What do you do in the final episode if you've resolved all the tension in the second to last episode? No, you save that. So I had a script, and now I'm already, once again, 15 minutes into a video. So I just wanted to get something out a little more quickly today. And so I'm not going to edit out all my verbal pauses and nonsense, but I just want to give Byler's, the advice I'm again coming to it as a writer, take heart, because it's like in Harry Potter where Remus says it comes down to if you trust Dumbledore. It comes down to whether we trust the Duffer Brothers, which I know is very hard to do right at this moment. But for them to have done such a careful, detailed, sensitive show up to this point and then completely screw it up now, it doesn't make sense. Unless they were pressured to drop Byler, which I know there's a theory out there that they were because Netflix is trying to purchase, I can't remember if it was Warner Brothers, and with the way Trump is, the Trump administration is controlling deals and homophobic, that might have affected the storylines and led to Cutgate, etc. So I am not going to get into that because I haven't researched enough of it. But, yes, that's a possibility. That happens in media. People make mistakes. People accidentally leak things. All sorts of things could be mistakes. But I just don't think that you spend 10 years and millions of dollars adding in Byler subtext and not have that pay off, because it would be much easier to queer code Mike by just a few comments, like his dad making those comments at the dinner table. But it's not just a few comments. It's his room. It's his wardrobe. It's Finn staring at Noah's lips again, and the gooey look in his eyes, him looking teary-eyed during the painting scene. Even during the coming out, again, take heart, Bylers, even during the coming out, where everyone said Mike has no expression, he actually does. I got interrupted, I don't know, about 6 hours ago. My uncle came into my room. So I think that is a good place to end it. I'm not sure when I'll post this, because what I really want to do is work on some different topics to get in before the ending, but I will try. And then these just won't be as well edited. They won't have visuals and everything, but I felt it was more important to get some things up before the ending, so that if I'm correct, I don't want people to say, oh, you did that after the ending. So I want to get the things that will be affected by the ending first, and then I have other videos that I had planned to make a video a day until until volume 2, and I didn't get to all of them, and then I came up with more ideas. So I'll continue to work on these, and if for some reason they betray the whole universe they created, there'll be some Byler videos to remind you that you're sane. And if we're correct, then it's just icing on the cake. And some even aren't even Byler related, but because that's one of the more controversial things right now, that's what I'm talking about. Some of my other things are just, observations about detail and stuff like that, and how good they are at detail. Anyway, Bylers, take heart. Everyone else, be kind to Bylers. I've seen some kindness, and I really do appreciate that, because it's not like I was a quote-unquote Byler until 2 weeks ago. I'd never heard the phrase, right? Didn't care about the teen romances. This is just my perspective as someone with a writing background who was a casual viewer, and then it was like, what? I suddenly saw something came into focus that I didn't realize. So that's not my primary, point of the show. I think it is now. I think it is the primary point of the show after realizing that, but it wasn't where I was coming from. I was not, I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have a need. I don't have a need for it to be right. Now I only keep talking about it because I think it's right, and I see so much hate directed at Byler's, and it's gross. And again, I'm gonna be the crabby old lady who's gonna stick up for kids in the comments when I see it. And people, of course, most of the people commenting on my videos, I've had a channel that isn't, I don't have many followers, I don't have many views, but guess what? If I write about Byler, suddenly I have men coming to my comments, Mike's straight, or I hate to break it to you, because of what happened in Volume 2. Is Volume 2 the finale? No, there's one more episode. The last episode is where everything turns. So everyone who's being very arrogant, telling Bylers they're stupid because of Volume 2, do you not know how film and TV work? What do you think is going to happen in the finale? Everything's just going to be the same. Mike and Elle are going to ride off into the sunset, maybe. But at this point, even that would be a big twist because they barely talk. They haven't kissed in ages. They just look like friends. In fact, Elle hugs Will the same way she hugged Mike, even down to, putting your hand on the back of his head. So there's just nothing romantic about their relationship. So who knows? Maybe everyone ends up single and we're never having kids because we didn't defeat Vecta. None of us really knows. I can only guess based on what I'm taught in writing programs by writers who, most of my writing teachers are fairly successful in most of the programs I went to. So take heart. I'm going to record some other videos, and I have some others in process, but take heart and enjoy the finale.